Hello. Yes, it is me, the woman who has been singing Trusted House Sitters praises for a minute. I did a comprehensive guide video. I did most recently a guide on the top 10 global destinations. But honestly, this last week on Trusted House Sitters has really wore me out. I've definitely hit my breaking point, and in light of all that's happened, and I don't think it comes down to one sit or one experience, but just like I've been on this platform doing back-to-back sits for over 100 days. I joined it last fall, and I just thought it made sense to have a bit of an unfiltered conversation, really going into my beef with Trusted House Sitters. There's no other way to say it. And honestly, when I told my mom that I was going to make this video, she was like, "Don't do it, don't do it." But why should I protect the company, you know? And also, when I'm making any sort of decision, especially if it requires me to spend money or time or it's affecting my home, I want all of the facts, as much information as possible, good and bad. Did this dog just fart? Oh my gosh. I don't know if it caught it on the audio, but don't be surprised if I relocate in a minute or two. But yeah, I'm making this video for transparency because I have been singing the praises for so long. And just last week I was thinking like, oh, I can continue this indefinitely, but I've this had such a 180. I feel like I just got snapped out of the matrix. So in this video, I'm going to acknowledge all the good that Trusted House Sitter has done to me. This is not going to be this me trashing them, but it's going to be sharing like really valid criticisms that made me question the value I'm getting and made me feel like, okay, once I have the opportunity to get more stable housing, I might be done with this, like for real. But yeah, let me just say, oh my gosh, let me just go ahead and get into this. So in this video, I'm going to share my honest beef with Trusted House Sitters. I'm going to share the story of my personal breaking point this week, and I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do next in light of all these new perspectives and just, yeah, facing the music. So yeah, what are my biggest beefs with Trusted House Sitters? Oh yeah, before I get in, of course, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Happy to answer them. I want everyone to be able to make the best decision for them. And I do want to clarify out the gate, like as someone who quit their job, living as a digital nomad, Trusted House Sitters has been an absolute godsend for me financially. Paying just for the membership and effectively not having to pay for any housing for the last 4 months has made it possible for me to navigate my job search, navigate my money situation and my lifestyle situation in a way where I honestly haven't seen other options in the market. So I still don't necessarily regret doing Trusted House Sitters, but I don't feel like it's a good fit for me long term. Like once I have more financial stability, I will be very happy to be done with them unless the things I'm getting into change. So I'll be continuing doing it for a minute, but yeah, let's see. Let's just get into it. No more frills. Okay. My first beef with Trusted House Sitters is honestly their name. Trusted House Sitters, you think there's a lot of house sitting opportunities, which from my perspective means that you're just going into someone's house, taking care of their home. No, this is not a house sitting platform. This is a pet sitting platform. I could look now, but I looked yesterday and they have over what 6,000 sits available at a time. Usually, like I've been on this platform for a minute, y'all, like almost like 9 months. And the most I've seen for no pet sit or no, I can't even say it because it's so ingrained that it's only pets. There's like maybe like 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 no pet house sits on this platform at the time. And many of the times, I have all the alerts active. So every time a no pet sit comes up, I get an alert. And about like 1 or 2 will always trickle in, and they clearly have an animal. They just didn't mark it so that the filters could filter it out. So out of 6,000, it's like what? 0.1% of the sits available are actually true house sits. So I just don't get me wrong. I knew that going in that it was mostly going to be pets, but I didn't know how few actual house sits there are. I'm just saying that wasn't like something that like I feel like was a deal breaker for me, but I think having those numbers up front would have been really valuable. And two, another beef I have with trusted house sitters is the price. So it's funny because I feel like when it comes to money, I have a habit of just doing a lot of analysis. And then once I make a decision, I will defend it to the grave and I will justify it, do all those mental gymnastics. It still makes money sense for someone like me because compared to paying rent and paying what, 2,000 bucks a month, of course this is infinitely more savings. But if I should just honestly take a step back and just compare them to their competition. Like I've seen their prices of their membership. It's like the lowest option is $129 per year, and the highest is $319. And that covers just if you're a sitter, or if you're a pet owner, or if you're a combination. So some pet owners also take care of other people's pets as a way to travel. So honestly, from a pet owner perspective, I honestly think this is an amazing deal because the alternative is doing a paid service like a Rover where drop-ins definitely add up, or if you're doing the equivalent and having someone stay at your house overnight, I think I saw, don't quote me on this, like $45 to $75 a night for that. So if you go on like what, one week trip a year, you're easily saving so much money with this. But as a sitter, it's really, really hard to get it's hard to quantify the value of it from a sitter perspective. And honestly, it never sat quite right with me that sitters are not getting paid on this platform. I get the spirit of it because it's international. It would cause all these challenges if you're being paid outside of your country. All the tax implications would be messy. But I've been mostly sitting domestically, so that doesn't really apply to me. And also, people get paid to do this. I said the number. So not only am I paying just to be in this ecosystem, but I'm also not getting paid. So it's kind of like a double hit financially in other directions. But yeah, I wrote in my notes is my biggest form of self-gaslighting. And yes, I think that was a really necessary thing for me to be okay with to join this platform. The fact that I'm not going to get paid. And it's really awkward when I tell people what I'm doing. They're like, "Oh, that's so cool. You get free housing and you're paid." And I'm like, "Actually, I'm not getting paid." And they're always super concerned, like, "What?" Like, I've talked to friends, just generally or about specific sits where I've had a lot of troubles, and they're like, "I really don't think you're getting the fair end of the deal. This is especially since you're not getting paid here." And honestly, I've come to agree with that, and I'll share that in the context of what specifically broke me later. But yeah, it's just really comes down to the fact that you really don't know the value as a sitter. So paying into something and not getting paid, it just presents a lot of issues, especially when it comes to specific sits. Originally, when I was thinking about like, oh, the economics around this or the value I was getting, like trying to put it in perspective for what people could understand, I kept on comparing it to an Airbnb, which I feel like it compares to in terms of the quality of the places. And honestly, still in some ways, I feel like I do like this better than Airbnb just because the kitchens. Airbnb kitchens are terrible, notoriously. At least the ones I've stayed at, they're like one pot, one pan. It's just like for people who are just passing by. But these are livable, functioning kitchens with all the spices and herbs I can use too. So it's just way better on that. I digress. I just love kitchens. I love cooking. But yeah, I used to think it came down to the quality of the place that justified the value. And fortunately for me, the quality of the place has never been the issue. But I've heard other stories from other people, so I'm very fortunate in that. But it's just, it's really, you can't really compare it to an Airbnb because it's just not an equivalent experience, like in terms of the freedom you have in an Airbnb. Like here, I need to chameleon myself to the schedule of whatever pet I'm taking care of at the time. I have to adjust to the pet's needs and adjust, like it's just like I'm taking on more responsibility. So it's, yeah. And also when you think about it, the people who are being paid to pet sit, they also get this benefit. So it's not like, oh, just because I get nice, or of course you might not always get nice housing in a paid situation, but you could potentially finesse your business in that way to get, okay, I'm only going to be staying at nice places and I'm going to be paid for it. I've heard of people doing it. So yeah. And I feel like the biggest issue is, again, compared to an Airbnb. Like in an Airbnb, if something is wrong with your accommodations, it's not meeting your expectations, there is a system for recourse. You can contact customer support. You can talk to the host and they should get it done for you. If not, you'll get a refund. But I feel like Trusted House Sitters doesn't really protect the sitters, at least to the level I that would make sure it's a good exchange. Like I don't think they protect them to the level of getting their money's worth. They protect them in terms of like, okay, everyone gets a background check, or you can't enter a dirty house. But there's a big gap between a nice place and a disgusting house, and they're this only managing like the worst of the bottom kind of situation. So for example, like I've had some houses I've dealt with that had like weird smells, or I didn't know they were smokers. And it's not like I have a way to be like, hey, your house smells. Can you get this fixed? Like it's just, I don't really have that authority, or it's just like really blurry lines on what to do in those situations where it's like uncomfortable, but it's not horrendous. So yeah, that's a beef I have with Trusted House Sitters on that. But we're gonna get into that later. Oh, okay. And again, I just want to remind y'all, like I really am not beefing with a specific owner or a pet. I feel like this is more of a death by a thousand cuts situations, or death by a thousand doggy dookies might be the better fit. And again, I really haven't found a better alternative to Trusted House Sitters. Yes, I've seen their competition. There's like paid things like Rover, but as someone with who wants to travel, wants to well, for one, Trusted House Sitters, actually no, that's coming up in a second, but Trusted House Sitters just really works for me as a nomad because I can travel with it more than I could with a lot of these other services that are more locally based. And it really comes down to the numbers. Like Trusted House Sitters is just a huge company. I looked this up the other day. They have over 144,000 members on their platform. So that just is a huge network ecosystem to tap into. So I feel like that is how they're justifying their cost, because I looked at some other competitors. I can, if you want to hear what they are, put that in the comment. I can look in my other notes later and share that. But yes, they were cheaper price points. Some of them were free. Some of them were like, what, $70 a year, but they had like 300 sits available compared to Trusted House Sitters, like 600, 6,000 is not a whole order of magnitude bigger. So like, even if, and I think that's also what kind of like further enraged me. Enraged seems like a strong word, but it's like one of those things where you kind of like endure disrespect for a while. You're like flexible. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. And then you decide you're not okay, or you acknowledge the disrespect. And then it's like rage. There's like no in between. It's like a light switch goes on. So that's kind of what happened to me with Trusted House Sitters. But yeah, like think about it. They have this many people on their platform. And this is from their website. Like on their front page, it will say like over 144,000 people. And so if people were just paying that bare minimum membership of like $129 a month, they're easily making minimum 20 million in revenue a year. I kind of nerded out on the startup side of things. I saw they raised another 10 million. So they are like rich. So I'm like, okay, you think if you're paying this much, you're paying a premium price, you're getting premium services, but I feel like that hasn't quite met my expectation. Yes, the houses I've stayed at are nice, but in terms of what the company itself is offering in terms of the app and the customer experience, I'm like, where's this money going? My theory is advertising, because every time you type house or house sitter or just like the letter H, Trusted House Sitters be popping up. So they've got their SEO on lock and they're just getting all those people in. But I'm going to keep it short on the app because I honestly think it's not that important to me, but it's just like the app is kind of clunky. It's a little glitchy too. And I think especially from a sitter perspective, the way the app is designed and organized, it's really hard. It's really easy to spend a lot of time trying to find the right sit and learning by trial and error, because the app just doesn't really set you up to figure that out. Like you really have to do the ground truthing, which again is why I created that video on my guide for Trusted House Sitters. I talk about all the things I do on my end to make sure the fit is right and to fish out those red flags before even committing, because the app doesn't really structure it so that you're getting all that pertinent information up front. Sometimes you should see all, at least like the house in the picture. You should at least have clear guides on what the dog needs. Sometimes people write one sentence like feed the dog. I'm like, no, I know your dog needs more than, like, they downplay the level of responsibilities. And then once you're in it, you really see what's up. Like I feel like I'm kind of like pulling teeth. So I feel like it's very similar to the job search in some ways, but less clear. So it's just really time consuming. And the customer service. I really wanted to like their customer service because when I first joined, that was back in October. I had a situation and I needed to cancel a sit because I unexpectedly needed to travel out of town for a job. And I could call them up on customer service. They immediately answered, were super helpful, super friendly, got it resolved lickety split. But then the next time I had and I needed help with Trusted House. Basically, the next time I used it, that was this spring, I called the customer service and this led to nothingness. And then I later see they removed the phone service completely. And now it's only email. And the email service sucks, y'all. It's just not good. And another problem I have with their customer support, again, because I'm paying a premium price, there is cancellation insurance, and there are tiers, like I mentioned, to the membership. You can get the super basic and it just has like, you can make a pet sit happen here. Then there are higher levels that have, don't quote me on all the specific details, but like liability insurance, cancellation insurance, access to contacting a vet. Because I knew I was going to be using this as my primary source of housing, I was like, add all the add-ons. This is gonna be great. And the cancellation insurance on its face, like when you're actually looking at the membership plan, it sounds great. It really, like, it says like up to $150 a day, up to 30 days, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, don't quote me because I'm not reading this. Oh, H&D, hi. Very true. Oof. You know what's up? My house sitting sisters here. We had an amazing live on this last week. I'll also put that in the description. Definitely check that out. But yeah, the cancellation insurance, there's a lot of secret fine print, and like just some quick highlights. The cancellation can only happen, I think it has to be less than 14 days. Oh, I just got a whiff of this doggy's farts. Oh my gosh, girl. Sorry, y'all. Ooh, I might need to open a window. Oh, I'm like, if my reaction is key to the nature of the story, this is foreshadowing. Once I get into the story of what happened, y'all know why acting this way. Okay. Back to the cancel. I might need to light a candle. Oh my gosh. I'm like, the lighting's so good. I don't want to move, but this girl, she's really sweet. I still be cuddling her every day, but she's so stinky. Okay. Back to the cancellation insurance. Yeah, there's just like a lot of fine print that makes it really hard to use. And I think it also makes it so that I just really don't feel protected as a sitter for any sort of international sit, which was the big draw for me for Trusted House Sitters. And especially since they market themselves as a place for pet lovers and pet sitters who love to travel. So the fact that you can only get the cancellation insurance if the cancellation happens less than 14 days before the start of the sit. I usually buy my plane tickets more than 14 days before my sit. So the implications on my airfare, which I'm usually cheap and don't get a refund, get a non-refundable ticket. It's just, I feel like it's really high risk. I was hoping, I don't know what I was hoping specifically, but it just makes it really high risk to do some of the things I was hoping to do or what I thought based on their reputation in terms of this using it reliably to travel, especially if I'm getting cancellation insurance and paying a higher tier for that service. And also, you also have to pay $100 every time you use the cancellation insurance. So I'm like, wait, what? So I already paid extra just to have the option to pay even more if I actually use the insurance. Like, bake it into the cost, y'all. Like, and I've tried to use the cancellation insurance twice, and customer service was super slow, very unhelpful, very dodgy with me. They didn't want to say for sure if I would get the cancellation insurance approved. So basically, you have to blindly go ahead and pay. Yes, D, $100 each time you use it. So if you had multiple cancellations throughout the year, you're paying $100. And I'm like, isn't that outrageous since you're already paying for the actual membership with the whatever? Y'all know how I feel about that now. But yeah, it's, and you're not guaranteed to get your money back. Like, you have to front the money and then file for a reimbursement. And I've looked in the forums and stuff, and people said that they had to constantly hound customer service for months. They said at least like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks is one of the examples. But like, who has time for that? Of course, if I really need to use the cancellation insurance, I will dog them, pun intended, every day for me to get my money back. But who wants to do that? Shouldn't this service be better? Like, when I see the quality of customer service going down, like losing that phone not line, I was just like, ooh, like, to not be able to talk on the phone, especially when you're using this for housing, like, there's just a comfort in that. Like, yeah, enough said on that. But yeah, it just made me feel like I really couldn't travel confidently on Trusted House Sitters, which is why I've been really specifically focusing on pet sitting hubs, which I've listed in my global destinations video. So because that creates my sense of safety, because if someone cancels on me, at least I have a decent chance of finding another sit and not having to front a bunch of money for my housing and not be sure if I'm getting it back and have to front those costs for 2 months. Because again, I'm broke. I'm real broke. I'm this thrifty like that right now. So I don't really have that cash to, like, I feel like it's low-key gambling. Like, am I gonna get this money back? It's just a lot. But yeah, let's get into another travel beef I have with Trusted House Sitters. Again, they say like over 6,000 sits worldwide. But I did the math, I did the research, y'all. All the sits are in 2 countries. I'm just gonna spoil my own video. You can watch the rest for the specific city level hubs, but half of them are in the United States and half of them are in the United Kingdom, which is where Trusted House Sitters is based. So that makes it really hard to get sits outside of those areas, or at least find sits that fit your schedule, your desires. Like, because what the other like little sprinklings are the rest of the world, you know? So those sits will be really competitive. And at least for me, in the short term, I want to be like, I'm not gonna lie, I still appreciate that Trusted House Sitters has saved me so much money this year. As a broke US citizen who can just bop around domestically, at the start of this, I was pretty much like, okay, I'm cool with going anywhere. Ooh, H&D. Yeah, a lot in Australia. That was on the list. I think Australia and Canada. I can't remember. I think Australia was third and it has like 300 sits, but like 300 sits versus 3,000. I think it was, the UK was like 2,700 and the US was like over 3,000. So even compare, like the top two are like the dominant ones, and then like the other 8% are like the rest of the world. But you're right, Australia is definitely in the top 5 there. But yeah, it's just like another thing is there's not that much overlap on where I want to consistently travel to, like in terms of the city level. Like all the cities I've traveled to so far that have been those main hubs, I'm kind of cool with going with them once. But in terms of me thinking, okay, I want to keep Trusted House Sitters long term, I'm like, I don't think I really want to go back to these places I've been. But again, that's a me thing. But for some people, it might work if there is a lot of overlap where there's high volume with where y'all usually travel. Um, but yeah, let me get into my situation now. Of course, respecting all the anonymity. Like I'm in this little corner of the room. You can't even see what this place looks like, y'all. But so this is my situation now. I've been doing this for 4 months. This is actually my longest pet sit so far, about 3 weeks. And the dog is super cute. The house is really gorgeous. The pet owners are super kind. But but upon my arrival, they mentioned that the doggy had diarrhea and was gassy. And y'all already saw me react to them farts. And of course, like when I'm getting into a new sit, I kind of expect to, you can't really directly communicate to a dog what's happening. They see their owner leaving, a rando coming in. I feel like there's this gonna be like a decompress period. So I'm just doing my thing, like hitting all of the owner's expectations and more, making sure the dog is good. And the dog is like, we're becoming besties, we're having a good time. But days pass and the dookie is still soupy. So I'm like, this doesn't seem right. One important note I didn't mention was before I committed to the sit, I did know they warned me very explicitly that the dog has a very sensitive stomach and I can't let the dog eat anything off, like anything except their food, basically, because the dog will quote unquote vomit and diarrhea. So I was like, okay, say less, like I'm gonna be on this. But the thing that in that moment when I committed to the sit, and again, I committed pretty early on into my journey, so I didn't have the same level of awareness as I did now. Like I booked this sit back in February, and it's like July, so a lot has happened since. But my original interpretation is okay. I just have to be careful and drop food. But no, if you're dealing with a dog or any type of animal with a sensitive stomach, that means anything could happen at any time, and you might show up and it had a recent reaction to something and it's still calming down. So that is the situation I've ended up with. Of course, I've been really communicative with the pet owners, keeping them informed, making suggestions. But it also felt, it's hard to interpret, and I get they're on vacation, but in the spirit of this Trusted House Sitters experience, I'm also supposed to be on vacation too. And like I really had to like push them to contact the vet, like they said they were going to, and then 4 days later they still hadn't, so I asked them again. So eventually, and then also like I also feel like this would be hard for someone who planned to actually enjoy the city that they're staying in or had a full-time job. Like I have time abundance. I am rich in time, poor in money. So I'm like pretty flexible, but I'm also still applying for jobs. And like one morning I get a note from them, like they finally contacted the vet. They wanted me to take a dookie sample across town, 30-minute drive each way. It was the morning before an interview. And I was just like, I was like, okay, let's do it. I was like, at least we're getting some solutions out. But then let me just skip all of that stuff. The long story short is the vet was not very helpful. They didn't even run tests on that bacteria. Based on this biohazard gas, there's something bacterial in this gut, but they didn't even test for that. And then they prescribed this like general medication for diarrhea, gave it to the dog, and oh yeah, I have to say, throughout this time, the stakes were increasing. Like when I was communicating with the pet owners, like I noticed there was some like redness and in the dookie. Homegirl was throwing up her food sometimes. Oh yeah, it was like the perfect storm because not only I didn't even say why she was sick. Like apparently she drank a dirty puddle, and apparently they also recently introduced her to new food. And of course, this doggie's gonna be a little stressed because her parents are gone and randos moving in. So it's just like a perfect storm of upset bubble gut situation. So I'm just like, dang, you couldn't have done like one of those things after y'all came back. This is a lot. They would not get a positive review. I feel some type of way because they're so nice, and I'm not. I don't know. I rather just not leave a review than leave a bad one. I just feel like there's not much of an advantage to me to leave a bad review. I know. People pleaser, recovering, but like, what would I feel like it was an honest mistake. I feel like they thought that the diarrhea would have cleared up in a couple of days. But I feel again, I didn't even get to the worst part of the story, but again, I feel like this type of situation makes it so that I feel like this situation would be a lot easier if I was being paid because at least I would have some level of recourse. Like, oh, I had to like randomly go to, okay, they did pay for my Ubers and stuff to get to the vet and stuff. Don't get me wrong. But actually, let me just say like the worst, the worst that happened. I mentioned the medicine. The medicine she got 2 weeks into my sit with her, gave her the medicine. We were just chilling downstairs all day. I was like prepping for another round of interviews the next day. She was chilling. I kept on trying to make her go to the bathroom outside. She wasn't going. She like pop upstairs. I'm like, okay, she's just chilling on the bed or something. She come back down. I'm like, same energy, just wasn't going to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, maybe the meds are working. Maybe they're firming stuff up and it's taking a while to churn out. And then at the end of the day, this was on Tuesday night. I'm really burnt out from all the interview prep I'm doing. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just relax, take a bath. And I like walk into the room, and first thing I noticed was the smell, y'all. When you notice the smell before the situation, you just know it's trouble. I'm still a little haunted by the smell, y'all. But I go into the room, and also I have this terrible habit of going into the room without turning on lights. Just any room. I don't know why I do this. It's just a habit. And I just see shadows on the ground, and I'm like, I was like, shit, I need to turn on the lights. Turn on the lights, and Dookie explosion. It was like Mount Dookie, and it was I can't even describe it. Like, this is a little dog. This dog had more poopies all over the room, the bedroom, and the bathroom than I saw a 115-pound dog I was taking care of. Like, this little dog had more dookie come out of her than that big old dog. I was I reached my breaking point in that moment. I literally just started bawling my eyes out of stress and exhaustion because I was already ready to go to bed. And then I see a huge mess. And it was, remember, I mentioned the dog briefly went upstairs. This was in the middle of the day, it happened. So it was sitting there for hours, and the room smelled disgusting. It was chicken liver, doggy shit, diarrhea, nastiness stewing for 10 hours. I don't even know how long it was there specifically, but it marinated. It was in the carpet too. So I tell the owners, and they're like, oh, so sorry. We have a carpet cleaner. I'll send you a video. You can clean up the carpet. It took me like 40 minutes to clean. Oh my gosh. Oh, I should have taken photos, D. I was so distressed. I didn't take photos. I took photos of the this is terrible. I took photos the first time she dookied in the room. It was much smaller. But this time I was sorry, she just walked by me smelling so farty, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm like I have like PTSD because every time I smell her food or her fart, oh my gosh. I didn't take photos. She's trying to gas me out of this house. I didn't take photos, but I wish I did. I told them it was like severe. They knew it happened. They know. It was just devastating. I was so distressed. And then and that wasn't even the worst of it, unfortunately. So once I finally clean it, I take some time out of the room to just like calm myself down before I go to bed. And a reminder, I have an interview the next morning. And then I just had trouble going back to sleep because I'm like, do I smell it? Did I miss something? Oh, it's just so disturbing. And I eventually do fall asleep. But then I wake up. No, I don't wake up. Homie wakes me up, jumps on me in the middle of the night. And I'm not good with being woken up from a dead sleep. And so I was like, oh, go back to bed. Jumps on me the second time and jumps on me a third time. I was like, oh my gosh, what if she does this again? Because the first time she dookied, it was in the middle of the night. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I get up, go downstairs, take her out to the backyard to do her business. She didn't dookie, she just peed. But then by that time, I was like, I'm completely awake. So I just stayed up, got like 3 hours of sleep before my interview. I was just, oh my gosh. I was just, and I feel like I'm still, well, yeah, this happened a couple of days ago. I still am feeling that exhaustion. But word, I definitely, D, you're right. I should have taken pictures. Ugh. I was just so traumatized and shocked and upset. I was literally, I know people say literally a lot. I was like thinking back the next day, I was like, girl, you were screaming at 11 o'clock at night in the residential area. Like, I was like, girl, the neighbors might have hurt you. Like, what were you doing? But I was just, it was just like a breaking point moment for me. And I was thinking, at first, I was thinking, I don't even know. I just had so many thoughts. I was like, what caused this? And I'm like, oh, maybe the pet owners didn't want me to go take her to the park because of the air quality, because the world is burning. Understandable. I thought it was because of that, because she was really used to going to the bathroom there. But then I was like, duh. The only really new thing is the medicine. I gave it to her. That was like maybe her first poop, at least first processed poop from the medicine. So I was like, it must be that maybe. And I looked up all the effects. I was like, WebMD doggy edition for this. And I saw the side effects for this anti-diarrhea medicine were diarrhea. Make it make sense. Loose stools, severe diarrhea. Oh. Would you strongly request that the owners board their dog with severe health issues? Honestly, severe. Honestly, beyond that explosion of Dookie, it's mostly she just stinks the whole house of farts, and sometimes I can hear her bubble gut beatboxing. So this one I wouldn't consider severe. They did say after she had the shit explosion, her second time diarrheaing. It's like diarrheaing. After the second time it happened, they did say I could crate her at night. Which I definitely diarrhea is for me. Wait, what? But yeah, the diarrhea, it was bad. And also, I really think we don't need to get into the details of this situation. I really think it's more of a death by 1,000 cuts versus like, oh, I had to clean up a big old mess of diarrhea once I'm done with Trusted House Sitters. This is not the first time I've had to clean up indoor dookie. It's probably like the 10th time, I feel like it's just part of taking care of animals, especially when they're adjusting to new people or whatever is going on with them. But the diarrhea, it's different, like regular poop versus diarrhea. It's just messy, and we don't need to talk about it. I can still smell it every time I give her the food. It's like chicken liver shit. Ugh, nasty. But reeling myself back in, this is another thing that I really expected. My expectations didn't match the reality of it, because one thing I got with Trusted House Sitters is the ability to call a vet for assistance. And I've done that before on a previous sit. And I know their MO is basically like, if it's not dire, call the pet's regular vet. And I'm like, well, this is kind of useless. Like, damn. Like, I'm so glad I have it, because CYA, cover your ass. But oh my goodness. But I was thinking, like, if a dog had a situation, I could call a vet and get a recommendation. But no, it's all in the parent's hands. So even after being the one picking up the medicine, dropping off the duty at the vet, I called them and I said, hey, all right, we got this medicine yesterday. It's been 24 hours and she dookied up the whole place, and I can hear her guts beatboxing, and she's having a biohazard diarrhea. Is this a normal side effect? After I WebMD'd it, like, is this a normal side effect? What do you recommend? Should I keep giving her the medicine? I call the vet because I'm trying to be proactive and not bother the pet owners. And I've already been very communicative with them. And the vet is just like, we can't, locked box. Like, we can't tell you anything. This is personal medical history of the dog. I'm like, I'm just asking if this is normal. So I'm like, okay. I guess, but the way the vet talked was not what I saw online. They said the medicine has no side effects. What medicine has no side effects? I told my mom this, and she was like, they can't even have no side effect medicine for people. They definitely don't have it for dogs. So I'm not buying this no side effect medicine, especially from what I read online. And oh my goodness. So they were like, oh, they need to sign a release to give you the rights to understand the dog's records. I'm like, I don't want to know the dog's records. I just want a recommendation on what to do in light of this dog's symptoms and the medicine you just gave her. Tell the pet parents. They're like, oh, well, email. I'm like, okay, not as fast, but okay. And then the email it seems like the email wasn't like an email with their actual, hey, puppy. Wasn't an email with their actual vet, hey, cutie pie. But it was just like a customer service inquiry, because I feel like they just got generic response. Like, the vet spelled the dog's name wrong, misgendered the dog. Even when I picked up the medicine, they were like, I was asking all these questions, and they're like, oh, answering them. And they're like, oh yeah, this is a cat, right? I'm like, no, this is a dog. Do all your answers change now? So I just felt like they weren't actually looking into the specific history of this dog, but rather this generally spouting quick answers. And the owners kind of just accepted it, like, oh, we'll just monitor and see what happens when we get back. I'm like, yo, I still got a week and a half here. And it just made me realize, in these types of situations, which are this like par for the course with Trusted House Sitters, I'm going to be in situations, or any sitter will be in situations, where they are dealing with the consequences of the pet owner's choices around medical issues, but they have none of the power to like decide and weigh in. It's all defers to the pet owner. So that is something that really got me questioning. Dee just said, I will, all caps, never pet sit. I have a low tolerance. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, that's the thing that really turned me off. And really, this got me like being like, once I'm financially stable and I don't need to rely on this for my main source of housing, like, I really don't see the value for me here. So I'm like, if I were on Rover, I could charge, like, for all this literal shit that's happened, I could like charge a cleaning fee, a wiping doodle off the booty fee. They could tip me. We could adjust based on the severity of the sit. But with trusted house sitters, it's like, okay, each time's an exchange. Sometimes it's good. If something bad happens, I'm not really sure what to do. And trusted house sitters is this kind of a gamble, like a little doo-doo ticking time bomb that could blow up any minute. That's honestly how I feel right now. Um, but yeah, after sharing all that, I want to be just knowing what I know now, feeling how I'm feeling. What are my main takeaways? I think one issue I've had that I've definitely been better at is stop being seduced. Like I have definitely been seduced by beautiful houses, cute doggies, but I need to, hi cutie, you're so cute. And I need to be filtering more intentionally about all these other factors that really make or break sits. Like some of the notes I wrote, I'll say that later, but I think there's like clear I made a list of my ideal pet sit, and now after I list it, I feel like I'm like, do you even want to take care of animals? I literally said my ideal pet sit, beautiful homes that I would pay to stay at. So that's my ideal standard. Dog can be left alone for 6+ hours. Not because I want to leave a dog alone every day for 6 hours, but that's an indicator. It's quantifiable of how independent this dog can be, how this dog behaves when left alone, which speaks volumes. Like flexible dog schedule, that's a thing too. I don't really want to like another thing that's just come up that I'm like, oh, this is a bigger deal than I realized. Like, at least for me, I've always been filtering for dogs sleeping in the bed. Like, I don't want that. I feel like especially now, it's just been really disturbing my sleep. Not the sleeping in bed because she doesn't, but like she can jump on my bed and wake me up from a dead sleep, and she's done that several several times. Um, Shedding. I got my little dreadlocks here, getting them little doggy hairs is not a vibe. In some of my previous sits where I had a dog with a lot of shedding, I like literally like wrapped up my hair, put it in a hat. I was just like, you ain't gonna catch me slipping. And I would be wearing like my rattiest clothes and this have them covered in hair. It just felt like I was putting on a hazmat suit. It was just not the vibe. I can't. Ooh, yes. Please talk about the code words like loves lots of cuddles and can't be left. Yes, yes, yes. So I mentioned this in other ones of my videos and also in our chat with D. There the problem with another big problem with trusted house sitters is no one wants to leave negative reviews, myself included. Like like D just said, you should leave not a good review, and I'm like, I'm scared. But so that means people will, and also like just like with parents and their kids, pet owners can have blind spots around their pets, and they could. I don't mean. Let me not even get into that, but you gotta be able to read between the lines and pick up like very specific coded language. So I always look at the reviews that the pet sitter has left, that pet owners have left their pet sitter, so I understand their standards. I read the descriptions of how the owner describes their dog. Now, when I talk to them before I commit, I actually ask them to this open-endedly describe their dog as a personality, and that speaks volumes. But one thing I've noticed is I had a really actually it was my second longest sit. Maybe I just don't like long sits. But that dog was very anxious. Like as soon as we met, he clung, like latched onto my leg, compulsively humping me for hours. I was like, I've only seen dogs really hump on TV or briefly in dog parks. So I've like never seen like I was like, this is like a little jackrabbit doggy. And the owner just was like, oh, this is normal. Bye. Never mentioned anxiety. I asked if they had behavioral issues, nothing. And then when I read the comments, I noticed like loves to cuddle, really affectionate. That's how people be describing clingy dogs. And you also got to remember, trusted house sitters is like such a magnet for pet parents with anxious dogs. What are you growling at? Baby, what's it? it's a magnet for anxious dogs because when pet owners leave or the because it's really ideal in a lot of ways to have your dog stay in the same environment and have minimal disruptions when they're away. So that's a huge draw for trusted house sitters for pet owners. So and it's really damn cheap compared to all the other paid options. So a lot of people with anxious pets are like, this is great. So it's really ooh. Oh, I just passed on a sit where 4 of the last 5 house sitters left no review. Yeah, absolutely on that. I always have question marks on that. Sometimes actually a sit that I ended up canceling on me was a similar situation. They had like maybe 3 or 4 previous sits with no reviews, and they didn't leave a review either, which I also didn't like. I'm like, I am being paid in a review. Like you didn't give me money, so you at least owe me a review. So that, and then they said they had a roommate staying and I'd have to share the space with them. I'm like, and it was like a random man who's not in that trusted house sitters ecosystem. I'm like, I don't want to live with no random man. But I digress on all that. But I just realized for me, I really need to tighten up my standards. And honestly, just to be fair, I feel like maybe I just need a break, which I'll be taking. Next week will be the first week. Well, not like in 7 or 8 days, will be the start of me having a full week without any sits since April. And I think I might have another break. After that week-long pet sit. So I think that will help. My next couple of pet sits are the types of dogs that their owner said could be left alone for 6+ hours. Another really nice thing I've noticed pet owners offer is to have like, oh, if you need to be away longer, we can get someone to drop in, like a neighbor, or hire a rover. I think that's really nice because I think I initially thought like, oh, can be left alone 2 to 3 hours. I'm like, that's plenty of time, but it's really not much time, especially when you're dealing with a dog and you really have to adjust for like, oh, they need to go to the bathroom or go to the park before you like it's just a lot of logistics. And to do all that just to only be and then commuting, using the public transit, that it really ain't that much time. Like you can't really like feel free to like wander around and explore the city. I feel like I need to go like I feel like I've only really left to like for groceries or logistics. Like I really feel like if I was in a full-on travel mode, it would leave me very dissatisfied and feeling kind of trapped. Um yeah, oh, and another thing. It seems so obvious now, but also like a dog that if people mention any chewing issues, that should be like a no-go for me. Have any of your owners had a regular house cleaner? This one does. I honestly think this is the first one. Actually, one of my earlier ones in April had a cleaner, but they came after I left and before they returned, which was funny because I spent all day cleaning their house, and then they were like, and then once I left, they mentioned they had a cleaner coming, and I was like, wait, so you won't even know how good of a job I did cleaning. I'm like, I did this I cleaned for the cleaners. But yeah, that hasn't been a super common occurrence for me. It's been only with this house. And they don't have like a set date, which is nice. So I could just tell them when I want the cleaner to come. But the cleaner is a little flaky. So they actually didn't come last week, but they came the first week. And maybe they'll come. I feel I feel like maybe this is just part of my personal conditioning, but even like as a kid, I when we went on hotels or vacations at hotels, we would often just do the do not disturb. So I actually don't really love like people coming in and having to like put all my stuff away for a cleaner to come in and then they move all my stuff in weird places. Like that's just me. I know a lot of people appreciate a cleaning and I'm sure it's amazing or I've experienced it and it's nice. I don't know. I feel like after the cleaner came, I was just like, why is this over here? Why is this over here? Like they put random stuff in the dishwasher. I'm like, you're not supposed to put wood in the dishwasher. Like, why would they do like I they cleaned well though, but I feel like I just like my boundaries. But yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, also on my ideal pet sit list or not list. I have like checks and X's. So on the X list, I feel like there might be an age component to it. It's not a perfect science, but like 2 years old is what's considered an adult. A lot of the dogs I've been taking care of at 2 years old, I feel like they still got that puppy vibe to them. I think I want older dogs. But also the really clingy dog was like 5. And I was like, why is this grown dog acting like such a little puppy? So it's not a perfect science, but I think and one dog I took care of was 2, and she couldn't be left alone for more than 2 to 3 hours, but she was really sweet and very drama free. Another thing I just don't like is when dogs are really barky. Like I get it, they're protectors, but when they bark at people, bark at other dogs, or actually no, I miss of course dogs, that's how they talk. They're saying hello. But I don't a lot of things that have come up is like, oh, my dog cannot be around other dogs or my dog is not good with people. Like I don't want to deal with dogs that can't be around other people or dogs that don't like other dogs. Even if you're with a dog that is good with other dogs, it's still a risk because even if you're introducing it to a random neighbor dog or whatever, like I've had those situations where the dog I'm taking care of is friendly, but then the other dog acts up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be in this. So like I feel like there's just a lot of messiness. And circling back to what you just said, Dee, I feel I would love to do some more no pet sits, but there's just so few of them. And the few I've seen, let me just pull it up now. I'm really curious. How many no pet sits are there on Trusted House Sitters? Put your guess in the comments. See how close you get. I already gave you like a benchmark for what I've seen. So I'm going to say anywhere in the world at this moment, how many no pet sits? So there's 6,161 sits total worldwide in the second. But once I filter for no pets, let's see. Let's see. Put in your answers. Last chance. 3. And the first one is I've literally never even heard of this place. And let's see. It is a true pet or true house sit. There's no person accidentally putting a cat sit or a dog sit there. The second one, okay, I have heard of this place, but I don't want to go there. And I also feel like it's hard to compare quality of vibe of a place, but I also feel like the houses that are more aesthetic and more Airbnb I would pay for are the ones with an animal in it. Like the ones with no pets from what I've seen are just they're not bad, but I wouldn't like go out of my way to go there. I sound so bratty, but that's at the risk of sounding like bougie, I'm just gonna say it. Like it's not the vibe for me. And also compared to the duties of a pet sit, weirdly enough, I don't really love the duties that come with a no pet sit, like doing a lot of landscaping or yard work. I'm allergic to outside. Literally, my most strong. Why am I telling the internet my allergies? I'm just gonna say it though, because it's so absurd. My strongest allergy is grass. No exaggeration. I did the test. Allergic to grass. Allergic to cats. Not allergic to mold. Weirdly enough, there's a whole. I have the whole little scratch test with me, but grass was like biggest allergy by a lot compared to all these other. So I can't be cutting no one's grass, which would be a really common request. I'll be like, sorry, you can't do it. But yeah, I. So yeah, that's all I gotta say on the trusted house sitters situations and my beef with them. I will be honest, I will be continuing to use them, but for me, I don't really see a really strong long-term value. It's been, like I said, an absolute godsend for someone like me on a career break based in the US, being able to bop around different places, stay in a lot of nice places, get all this free pup therapy, meet cool people. That's been great. But moving forward, if I wanted to continue doing pet care or pet sitting, I feel like money would be the only way I'd feel like really okay and fully protected. Because at least when literal shit hits the fan, I can be like, at least I'm getting paid. Like I feel like not getting paid in these type of situations really can hit you in a certain type of way, especially knowing that there is a strong market around getting paid around this stuff. Trusted House Sitters got us all drinking their Kool-Aid. But I get it. But yeah, I hope sharing all this has helped you figure it out. Like really stress test if Trusted House Sitters is right for you. And I'm still gonna put my referral code in there because it can give me a little bit more time on Trusted House Sitters to figure my stuff out. So if my content has helped you and you decide to sign up, please use my referral link linked in the description. And if you have any questions for me about what I look for in a house sit, any questions about how you should go about it, put it in the comments. And of course, check out my other videos on the topic. All right. It's about noon where I am. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday, and I hope y'all do too. Peace.